Hi guys, I am back with another video and I wanted to cover a topic today that's relatively a delicate subject matter at times to discuss, but I really wanted to cover it and I thought it would be good to highlight some points under it. But before I move forward, please subscribe to the channel if you like the content on this channel. And if you have any suggestions for videos for topics that you want us to cover, please write them in the comments below as well because yeah, we would love to hear from you and know what you want us to talk about. Anyway, so many OCD sufferers have also experienced something traumatic in their life, and when they speak about their OCD, or the trauma they experience, they often talk about the two together, and there is often a link established between the two things. And it makes sense that why trauma and OCD are often linked together, because both have a lot of similarities with one another. And I made some points, like I always have my notes, so I wrote some things down, especially for this video, because I did not want to leave anything out, and I wanted to make sure that I cover like everything properly. So like some similarities are that both are often isolating and very disturbing experiences. They affect almost every aspect of your life. They feel like they're almost this intrinsic experience that have like an effect on you, effect on every single part of you. Both are fueled by fears and anxiety, and both bring about very complex thoughts and feelings in a person. So it's easy to make that connection between trauma and OCD because both are very similar. And because OCD is something that is a very deep, intense, complicated experience, people often think, who have also experienced trauma, people often think that something so disturbing can only come from something that was originally just as deep and intense and complicated in the first place. So that link that trauma perhaps caused OCD is very easy to make. Now, if you go on the internet, perhaps, although I don't suggest that because that often becomes compulsive, but if you look up research on the link between trauma and OCD, there is research out there that does suggest that there is some link between the two, but the evidence is not very concrete. And that is actually good news, that the evidence is not very concrete, and I'll explain why that's good news as I move forward in this video. Even if you look at OCD in itself, the causation or the causes for OCD are not very clear. There are most probably a number of factors that influence OCD or that bring about OCD in a person. It can be genetic, it can be environmental, it can be the conditioning or the socialization that you've had growing up, the kind of fears you have, the kind of belief systems you have, whether that's religious or other kind of belief systems, because a lot of people derive their fears from that as well. So yeah, there are a lot of different factors at play that can influence you to have OCD. And if you throw in, for example, trauma in the mix, it can be something that influences you, but it's more than likely not the singular cause for your OCD. And it can perhaps activate your pre-existing genetic tendencies or other tendencies that you've already had since before. But since OCD and trauma are often for people, they are often linked together so closely, it's very common to go down that path of figuring out your trauma or analyzing it to know more about OCD or try to figure out some kind of cure or recovery plan. That's exactly what I did for myself as well, because initially when I started to go for therapy, my plan was to figure out trauma and try to develop a deep understanding of how it affects me, because I knew that at the time, it was influencing a lot of my behavior patterns and the way I thought and the way I felt. and a lot of my dynamics that I had with people in my life. So I went into therapy to discover that, and then simultaneously I also had the realization, and I basically found out that I had OCD as well. And then when I thought about to try to figure out my OCD and try to know more about it and how it affected me or where it came from, I look back on the first OCD episode that I had in my life. And incidentally, that OCD episode was the very next moment that I experienced something traumatic in my life. It happened right after that. So I have contamination OCD. So yeah, I had my first contamination compulsion right after that. So obviously, I automatically thought, oh well, I mean, since my first OCD episode was right after I experienced something traumatic, clearly my trauma has caused OCD. And so I went on this long search for answers then. I began to really delve into what happened and try to analyze every single thread, every single instance, every single emotional inflection of that incident. Because I thought, if I do that, the maximum that I do that, the best I will be able to figure out OCD, where it comes from. I will crack the code, and somehow my compulsions will, by developing that understanding, my compulsions or my intense chronic anxiety will automatically start to dissipate, and it will start to go away. And so I looked for recovery in the psychoanalysis of my trauma. But incidentally, and I mean, you might know this by now, that did not work. You might have guessed that as I was telling that story. That obviously did not work, and I kind of got frustrated and a bit hopeless for that matter, because the more I discussed it, or as I went deeper into therapy, my OCD actually got worse. It did not get better. And it really frustrated me, because I thought, well, I have developed such a deep understanding of this. I know how it affects me, and I even know all the different emotional and mental dimensions of that traumatic experience and how that has impacted me. Then why is my anxiety not going away? Why can't I stop my compulsions? And yeah, I just went through this confusing period of what's going on. For a brief period of time, I tried to analyze my traumatic experience and the aftermath of it in even more detail. But then I thought, okay, there's nothing more to discover here. Maybe I should start to talk about other very difficult experiences that I've had in my life that also have some similarities, the kind of emotional similarities or the mental process similarities with my traumatic experience as well. So maybe I should discuss those, and then when I will discuss all of that and when I will analyze all of that, I will be able to reach a place of peace and contentment. Didn't work, obviously. And I just got really, I mean, I think I just rolled my eyes, and because I'm just remembering that I'm recalling that entire process, and at the end I was just very exhausted then. I just got tired, and I thought, you know what, to hell with this. It is what it is. I'll probably have OCD for the rest of my life. I'll somehow figure it out. I'll somehow manage. I'll just live with this, and because I can't find any answers, this is not going away. I don't know what the game plan is for recovery for this, so let's just move on in life. In retrospect, I'm glad I went through that process, because that exhaustion and that I don't give a shit about this, that approach was perhaps my first true moment of acceptance. Uh, Unconditional life acceptance, that I have this, unconditional other acceptance, and unconditional self acceptance. And I think acceptance of OCD and acceptance of trauma, both these are actually two individual topics separately that need to be covered in greater detail. But yeah, that was a true moment of acceptance, and I think I've carried that acceptance with me up till now as well. Obviously, at that time, I had no idea about what acceptance is, or if that's even required. I had no idea who Albert Ellis was. I hadn't met Rob. No clue that he existed. So yeah, but I was able to reach that point. Obviously, I met Rob then, and then that day and this day, I mean, if you have seen my other videos, you know the story. I've made progress. I'm in a much, much better place in my life. So the reason I initially said that this is good news, that there is no clear evidence that trauma causes OCD, is because you don't have to go on this really long, exhausting scavenger hunt in the deep forest to look for any answers for OCD recovery or to find peace for OCD. I did that and it did not work. That's why I told you that entire story, because that search for answers goes nowhere. It's pretty much futile. And giving up that chase really, really helped me, because I think when I was linking OCD to trauma, and when I thought that, okay, that caused this, so I need to figure out trauma, what I was doing was that I was also simultaneously linking every single behavior that I did every day, every single behavior I did, every emotional up and down that I experienced, every mental process, every dynamic that I had with, for example, my siblings or my friends, or any romantic dynamics I had, I kept linking that to trauma, because I felt like this has caused OCD, and therefore OCD has affected every single aspect of my life. So therefore, my trauma is still living with me as I move forward every single day. And I was narrating that story to myself every time, and every single thing that happened in my life, I was reminding myself of my trauma. I will not say that those things reminded me of my trauma, but I was doing that to myself. I was narrating that entire story over and over and over again. This is something I also talked about in the last video that I did as well, where I was constantly bringing the past to the present. I was literally exporting it from the past and pasting it into the present. And that, again, like I said, that cycle did not go anywhere. And so when I gave up that chase, when I gave up that chase for answers, when I stopped over analyzing and bringing the past, and when I stopped bringing the past in the present, I think that is when I genuinely began to live in the present moment and look forward to a better recovery plan, a different recovery plan. Obviously, especially when I met Rob, I was able to recalibrate my approach towards recovery, and yeah, I wouldn't do it any other way now. So yeah, it really helped me live in the present moment and work on recovery more structurally. If you try to analyze your trauma, you're more than likely going down a very compulsive path, because in my case at least it led to 4 kinds of compulsions. Number 1 is I was trying to chase relief and chase peace in my life and happiness, because I was so desperate to have all of that. I was like, I need this in my life. It became this very desperate plea from life that I need recovery and relief. Number 2, it will lead you down a path of rumination, which in my case it did. I would spend a lot of time just thinking and thinking and going, okay, what if this affected me? What if this happened? What if I need to look at this part? What if the resulting disturbance from this is doing this? A lot of what ifs, a lot of, yeah, just lots and lots of rumination. That was a compulsion at the time for me. Number three, it led to a lot of confessing. So for me, in my case, I think I almost felt like I mean, I don't regret sharing my trauma with people, but I think the intention in many cases at the time was that, oh, I think I should tell people about the trauma that I experienced because that will help them understand me as a person better, and that will help them understand my personality better. And number four, it also, for me at least, it led to some path of reassurance as well, because I would ask people for like reassurance in various other forms. So yeah, and we all know that compulsions fuel the OCD cycle and they're not helpful. So going on that search for answers in trauma and linking the two together, OCD and trauma, it will possibly lead you down the path of some compulsions as well. For me, I think personally, I now do realize, like I have realized over this process that, wait, let me, okay, sorry, I was just, for a moment I thought it's not recording, so I just wanted to make sure it was recording. Otherwise I would be talking to myself. So yeah, I think for me, I now do realize that for me, the traumatic event in itself was not the reason for me to have OCD. It probably just played upon the pre-existing tendencies that I already had. It activated probably the genes that I think I already have, because I see some form of OCD in my parents as well and my siblings as well. And the thing is that, I mean, even if trauma had not occurred in my life, who knows that I still would develop OCD, because if I'm truly honest with myself, if I look at my life before I experienced that, even as a child growing up, I always had OCD tendencies in me, and I won't even say OCD tendencies. I'd say that I had mild OCD since I was a child, because I remember asking my mother for a lot of reassurance when I was a child. Then I asked for a lot of reassurance from my friends in my life. I confessed a lot of things because I had this urge and I thought, okay, I think I need to confess. So I had these different kinds of compulsions, and I think back then I had a lot of magical thinking OCD as well. So yeah, there were a lot of these things that I was already doing, and perhaps a traumatic event just heightened those tendencies even further. And also, if you talk to people around in the OCD community, you will see that a lot of them, I mean, a lot of people have not experienced anything traumatic and they still have OCD. So again, if you latch onto that close link between the two, then like I said, it's not a fruitful pursuit to have. I will say though, I'm not trying to say in this video that you should not try to understand trauma itself or the thing that happened to you, because that in itself is a very significant experience, and understanding the impact that it had on you is valuable information, and it really helps you develop a deep sense of self-awareness of how you behave, how you think, how you feel, and how you navigate a lot of your relationships in your life as well. So there's definitely value in that, and that is important in itself. The only thing that I'm trying to highlight in this video is when there is causation developed between the two, trauma and OCD. Even though they have similarities, but keeping the two separate is perhaps a better way to approach recovery. Because even if I look at my what I was doing initially in therapy of trying to figure out OCD, I was not actually doing any recovery work that I'm doing now that is immensely helping me. I was only psychoanalyzing and again going down that compulsive path. That was the only thing I was doing, which was not helping me in any capacity at all. The recovery work that I'm doing now, exposures, disputing, acceptance, and all these other things, that's very different from that initial plan that I had set up for myself. So, wait, what was I saying? Yeah, I think you get my point. So so that's the only thing that I'm saying, that keeping the two separate and working on both of those separately is perhaps a better approach to have, because at least in my case, I will say that that is what has helped me immensely. Yeah, I think I have covered all the points that I want to cover. I hope this makes sense to you. If you want any further clarifications, if you have any further questions on this topic, please do write in the comments. I would be happy to answer them. And yeah, I think that's about it for now. So I will see you soon, and take care of yourselves. Bye.